going to do what I was going to do anyway. I was going to actually start with the Lady Gaga song, "We live for the applause, applause." No? Live for the applause. Okay. I'm going to question you all as if we were all in a time with children right now. So what are the different ways in which people do applause? What kind of different applauses? Why do people clap or applaud in different moments? Anyone? Congratulations? Congratulations? What? Approval, right? What other ways do people applaud? Appreciation? What? Enjoyment. I enjoyed this. It was great. Celebration. They throw money. I'll take it. I'll take it. What? Participation? Yeah. What are the kind of places where people applaud at? I was thinking like sports games, right? Concerts, golf courses. What? Speeches. Maybe bell choir. Maybe sermons. My last church I did that. It's up to you. But like I was also going to talk about how there's different kinds of claps because there's like, there's gentle applause. Can everyone do that? It's like just gentle applause. There is like, I want to make noise. I also find that there's like the sarcastic applause that's come up into recently, like, you know what I mean. So there's all different ways in which we experience celebration, applause. There's all different ways in which people applaud for different things. And I think this passage with its macabre, thank you for reading it so well, Karen, and it was like, this is a children's sermon, we're talking about death and destruction, but that's the world, that's the life we live in, that's the past we have. But I think there is something about a cheering crowd. There's something about what we call being hyped up, right? Like, it gives you energy, right? We experience it again like at concerts, sporting events, maybe if someone gives a great speech, maybe in politics, maybe in personal, maybe in church life, where someone does something and you're like, I've been in places where people are testifying, like in Wheaton City Hall for certain things, and when they say something you like, you're like, and it's the approval thing. It's like, we're all in this together. Sometimes I feel like applause is like this solidarity moment of we're all in this together, So in talking about sporting events, which I don't talk about a lot, so you're welcome, I remember one of my first baseball games growing up as a kid. I looked up to make sure of the timing and that it was all accurate. It was. Google's our friend on these moments. And it was on August 13th, 1982, going back that far. Steve Sachs, does anyone know what happened that day if you're a baseball fan of the Dodgers? Steve Sachs, anyone? You're like, what? Baseball in LA? Yes, LA plays baseball. The LA Dodgers. Steve Sachs set the rookie record that day with a stolen base and a 6-1 victory over the San Francisco Giants. The game took place at Dodger Stadium. We were there. And after going 0 for 3 to start the night, Sachs singled to right field in the 6th inning. When Ken Landreau at the plate, Sachs proceeded to swipe second base for the 41st steal of the season, and he got a record that night. Everyone stood up and applauded because like you were there for that moment, right? It gave Steve Sachs the franchise record for the most stolen bases in a single season by a rookie. And I think since then that has been probably dethroned a little bit. But I remember the crowd roaring. I have a memory of that. I was about 10 years old or so, 11. I remember my dad and grandpa jumping out of their seats. And I think I sort of went, huh? Because I was busy eating my Dodger dog. Yes, Dodger dog. Because for me, we didn't get to have soda and the ice cream that came in those cups with the wooden spoon. I still love the flavor of wooden chocolate. I don't know. It's a thing. I didn't get to eat hot dogs at home, so I was busy like mowing down on like soda and hot dogs. So I think I was like, oh yeah, whatever. Like I didn't even know what was going on. But my dad loved baseball. He'd played baseball as a kid. He was also a Boy Scout. And so I don't think there was a Saturday growing up or any time on the weekend when he was home where he wasn't doing something out in the yard or in the garage, I'm not saying anything that all of you don't know about your dads, right? In the garage doing something where there wasn't the radio going and a game on, right? Being, kind of over the radio. Because back then we didn't have many TVs. There weren't things on your phones that you could look at. But there was something electric of that stadium and that crowd. And my dad talked about it for years later. And so I remember it only because my dad was so excited. And as you know, I lost my dad this year, and it was just a great memory to have with him. Because witnessing history is amazing, right? But it's even more amazing when those witnessing history are really involved in it, right? I wasn't as excited because I was there for the hot dogs and the soda. But there's something about the game of baseball, which I've always found, honestly, kind of boring, but it goes a really, really long time. So when there's things that happen that are like the crowd roars, you get really excited. We go every summer to Kane County Cougar games, and it's always a big crowd. We're there, and we have a lot of fun. But honestly, the Kane County Cougar game, we're there, and what are we getting? Does anyone know? $2 beer. And what else? $2 hot dogs, right? Or maybe they were $3 this year. But we're watching the game, but it really is more for the experience of baseball. One of my first jobs growing out of college later in life, when I worked at a nonprofit in Los Angeles, we helped facilitate foster adoptive children in churches. And one of our biggest fundraisers was attached to the LA Marathon. And we would sponsor it. And so I've gotten to go to the LA Marathon a number of times. The only thing I didn't like about the LA Marathon was you had to wake up at like 3 in the morning to kind of get everything ready for the LA Marathon. Now, I never ran it, but I would organize things around it. So like the suite of runners, right? Because I worked the donor development nonprofit side of it. Or we would, usually when I did the side of it with the families and kids, we would find a place alongside the LA Marathon route, and we would have our own party, and even like a worship service. And then the runners would run by, and we would, wave at them. But we always had like a free In-N-Out truck, and so even when the LA Marathon was going by, I was busy eating an In-N-Out burger. I was like, is that running looks really hard. Third thing of French fries, right? I'm not sure the runners appreciated it all that much, but here we were eating French fries and soda and waving them along. What seems very apparent to me is that a crowd or an audience of mildly interested spectators, more interested in their burgers, fries, or hot dogs, is not really what the author of Hebrews is talking about here. I've always found it fascinating, again, this sports phenomenon. The yelling at the TV or at the stadium, whatever game or sport is being played, we tend to get very emotional over these things. We have little control over it, but you hear things like, "Ref, you stink," right? Who's heard that? Hopefully not at kids' games, that gets a little intense, but come on, what kind of throw was that? And the things we yell, come on, why didn't you catch it? And I find that the people yelling the loudest are often the people that really couldn't get the catch and couldn't get the throw and certainly couldn't ref, right? A really important game in Major League whatever, right? And so in that moment, are we critics? Are we competitors? Are we excited about the game? What does that mean? I love one of Brene Brown's most inspirational quotes that she got for her book, Daring Greatly. So who has read Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly? It's a really, really good book. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. It was inspired by a Theodore Roosevelt speech, quote, in Paris in April 23, 1910, and this is the quote that he gives, that she based her book on. "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. But who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who, at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if fails, at least he fails while daring greatly. So that this place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat." So that's the quote. It's the people who dare greatly, who do the doers of the deeds, who are in the arena, that matter more than the people on the sides that are yelling the criticisms, right? You could have run farther, you could have caught that, as you eat another French fry, right? So you see, there's all kinds of crowds of witnesses, right? Some are hyping you up, some are tearing you down, some are criticizing things about those who are playing the game or playing even the game of life. in a way that shows how little they know about what is going on and how hard it is to do that thing. From, again, football to soccer, sometimes we cheer as if we could do things better, even though we know that's probably not true. And as a crowd of people who have risked and played and been covered in sweat and done the hard things who still cheer you on, there's nothing better, right? There's nothing better than be cheered on by people who know what it's like to do what you're doing. So I think we have a misunderstanding of the concept of great cloud of witnesses. Again, we started this, and there's a whole list of people that have done things in faith, right? Done terrible, hard, horrible things in faith. Not been successful necessarily from the past in Israel, right? In the Old Testament or the Hebrew Scriptures. Those stories of people of faith. And you've probably heard the great cloud of witnesses before. Have you heard that scripture, that part of it before? Raise your hand if you've heard. Therefore, such a great. So whenever there's a therefore in Scripture, do you know what you do? You ask what it's there for, right? Therefore. Because if something is coming, so when you see a cloud of witnesses, it's not a cheering cloud of witnesses like at a game that is eating their French fries and hot dogs, just mildly entertained. No, the great cloud of witnesses are these people that have come before that have dared greatly and done these things in their own faith. Before Jesus came along, they had this amazing faith and did these amazing things. Some failed, some succeeded, but we know their stories. So the great cloud of witnesses is cheering us on, but I wonder if you've ever understood the context, again, of those cloud of witnesses. Again, these aren't popcorn and hot dog eating folks. No, there's these people of faith who just got off the field. So that's the context. It's these people of faith, this litany of people who've done and survived and maybe not survived these things in the name of their faith, and they just got off the field. They're marred in dust and sweat and blood, and they're the ones that are looking down at us, seeing what we're going to do next. They're not unamused. They're not just yelling at us about things they haven't done. They are the ones that are cheering us on. I love watching a game of sports when it is for youth or kids. I often go to games, as you see, and there's no better cheerleaders of a sporting event than the team that's involved in your school that just got off the field or just got off the court, and then they've stuck around in what they're doing now. They're cheering on that next team because they know what it's like to be out there, right? So these are people that have struggled in their faith, and they've come up and said, we are going to be the cloud of witnesses. And it seems different somehow, right? Not this, popcorn or hot dog eating crowd, not a disaffected crowd that's just mildly cheering. No, they're yelling and screaming and shouting because they know what it's like to live a life of faith in a world that often doesn't allow us to spread Jesus' love because there's so much unlove in the world, right? These are folks who have been through it, experienced not simply the joy of victory, but the terrible feeling of defeat. They have cried out for deliverance, and some have received it on earth, but others have not. So this image from the book of Hebrews that you've probably heard before, this cloud of witnesses, I always had thought were like lofty and detached, right? These saints who maybe you imagine them to be, have a halo, cloaked in clean, white, and just cheering us on. But I don't think that's what's happening at all, right? When I was in middle school, this is going to be a sports metaphor. You're welcome, because I hardly ever do this. I dabbled in track and field. I like to say I dabbled in track and field because I'm not a runner. But I did the dashes. So like 50 yards, 100 yards, fine. The thing goes, you run as fast as you can, you're done. I don't know once you start circling that track more than once, I'm just like, that seems hard. Like I don't want to do that. I was okay in middle school. So the coach put me on a relay team, right? And that was a bit more of a challenge, right? Because it's the one thing to feel the pressure of being on the starting block. The hardest part of running any dash is the starting block. If you get a good start off, your race is going to be good. If you don't, 50 yards isn't going to help you, right? So there was always this pressure to get the right, you have to have the right where your hands are positioned. You have to have all of your energy in a good place. But when you're doing a relay, I was usually 2 or 3 in the relay of 4 because 2 or 3 are the slower ones. I don't mind it. And you kind of had to stand there and kind of have your hand out. And you had to know when they were coming, when you could take off. Because if you took off too soon, what would happen? The other person would get so mad at you because they're done with their part of the race and they had to keep going to get up to you, right? If you run too fast, they're like, no, And if you take off too late, which one's happened one time, they hit you, like they're too close to you. And so that handoff is what's really important. But the thing I noticed about being on the relay team was that there's no one that was cheering on the ending of that game more, an ending of that race than who? The other members of your relay team. They were like, we would sit there, and I was usually like second or third, and then we would just be like, oh, because the last one, we had no power and control over how she was going to run the race, but we were so excited because we had a stake in it, because we had done the beginning of the race, right? We would yell, go, go, go. And it felt different somehow than those people in the stands, our parents or whoever, cheering us on as we run the race, as they're thinking about the thing they're going to eat later. Right? Because this race was the collective effort. And I think that is more what's happening here. The cloud of witnesses is cheering us on because they are a part of this collective effort of the way of Jesus, right? They have already given their lives. They've already run their race. They've already passed on the baton, successfully or not, right? You see, they are the ones that are cheering us on as what I like to call, we continue the Jesus relay, or the God relay, right, in this life. Passing it on forward, keeping up the energy and getting across the finish line. These folks are cheering us on because they are as much a part of our faith life as anyone in this room is for yours. They started on their own starting blocks, and their baton of faith that they carried, we now carry. And it's partly due to their hard work of keeping the race going, of writing things down in the New and the Old Testament, that give us the context for our own faith, that give us the energy for our own faith, that is the race that has come before us. They have gone through it, they're done, but they're cheering us on. I think often we think of this in a way that is, again, detached, but no, they are the ones who just got off the field, and they are excited. They are excited because they literally were either in the lion's den, or they were in jail, or they were suffering, and they persevered because of their faith, right? This whole scripture was by faith, by faith, by faith. I saw that you highlighted that when you're reading it. They'd done these incredible, miraculous things. And yet, here we are. We have the baton now. We are running the race that they set before us. And the race is brutal. Race is hard on your body. If you've ever run in a marathon or has anyone run a marathon before? I know we have some runners here, but you get blisters on your feet, right? It's a hard thing. It's hard to breathe, your knees hurt. I've never liked running. I always say that I don't run unless someone's chasing me with something, but that's me. And so here we are. Here we are with our cloud of witnesses. But the truth is, they expect a little more of us than I think we think of them. They're looking at us, those who call themselves Christians, those of us who do, followers of Jesus in 2025. They are looking down at us, and they are expecting us to run the race the way they did, with courage and perseverance and integrity and empathy. We struggle to find out what it means to be a Christian in 2025 in this time and place, and with our family and friends and neighbors and colleagues and church and community and city and country and world. We struggle to run this race as ones who are challenged by those who have come before us. We're challenged to really go for it, to get dirty, to try and fail, to try again, to do our best at justice and equity, and to bring God's love and grace and goodness to the world. And we might fail, but we keep going. We might fall and stumble, but we keep going. Because the inspiration of our faith is those who have come before us, the pioneers who have come before us, that have worked hard to get us where we are today. They endured the unimaginable. Because for God, faith is not a singular sport, it is a group activity. And it requires us to know each other and run alongside on the race and cheer each other on. And again, it doesn't mean that we will be perfect. We won't have perfect theology. We won't say the perfect things. We won't have the perfect way to express ourselves in this culture. But we still keep going. Because God is the one, when we have faith, who will make it all a miracle, right? Delivering love and grace and justice and goodness, because it's not just up to us as individuals, it's up to us as the collective who continue to run this race that has been set before us. We, as we remind ourselves this month, have faith. And I would say today, have faith in the applause. Have faith in the applause. Because those applause are people who are covered in all the sweat and muck that we are covered in, trying to live in a difficult world by showing God's grace and love and empathy and compassion. They know what it's like. They're cheering us on because they know how important running that race is. Not only for us, but for the world. They changed the world with the stories they told and the things they did and the risks they took and the faith they had and all of the amazing things they do, because this gave them meaning and purpose, a bigger reason to be here. And so my hope and my prayer is that as we look towards what's happening in the world, we look towards what our response should be and who we are as a community, that we are inspired by the witnesses who have come before us, the faithful of God. And they want us to go farther, endure harder, go faster, and be even better than they were. And so I'm going to end with a poem by Lena Warren called "You Are Witnesses of These Things." Witness. That's an interesting designation. A witness sees something, experiences something. It's kind of a passive thing, being a witness. Something happens and you simply observe it, and that makes you a witness. Yet we don't tend to leave it like that. We tend to think of one being a witness as someone who is compelled to speak about the witnessing. And more than compelled to speak, to testify, to make claims, to have the experience of simply observing changing one's life. Witnesses. The Greek word for witness is the same root word where we get the term martyr. One whose life bears witness, one whose life is changed by being a witness. You all are witnesses. It is as much of a promise of transformation that we have simply in seeing God at work as it is an obligation, a call, a command, a need placed on our hearts, first of all, to just simply notice what is happening and then tell somebody what we've seen and what we know. And that telling has changed us, has made us new. You are witnesses. We are all witnesses in the faith we have in Jesus. And when we go run a strong bit of the race or get a bit bruised or fall or get back up, there's a reason that we have community together. It helps each of us to keep going. When we fight for justice and serve others and show compassion, we do it together and we cheer each other on. And when you do the hard things, even if you fail, when you do the hard things, even if you might be wrong, when you do the hard things, even if someone here might be like, ooh, it's a little too far, if you listen really carefully, you might hear some applause. Amen.